Right on time, ladies and gentlemen. Right on time. I already knew this was coming. All right, I already knew this was coming. I said it last night. As soon as something happens with the Indiana Fever fan base, here we go on First Take, blasting the Indiana Fever fan base and blasting Caitlin Clark. Here we go, man. Here we go. We had nothing to say about Seattle. Spitting fans, right? Arguing with teenagers, right? A grown man arguing with teenagers. None of that.
Right there. That's the face of someone who's had enough. And honestly, can you blame him? Because what we're about to break down is a pattern that's been playing out for months now, and it's getting worse. Every single time something happens involving the Indiana Fever fan base, the national media machine fires up with the same tired narrative. But when other teams have actual documented incidents with their fans, radio silence. Complete radio silence. Let me walk you through what just happened, because the details matter here. A Fever fan sitting courtside during their game against the Aces allegedly made a comment toward Jackie Young. Security got involved, investigated the situation, talked to witnesses, and determined there was no violation of the fan code of conduct. The fan wasn't removed. They chose to leave after being embarrassed in front of thousands of people in the arena and millions watching at home. And then the official statement came out. We consider the matter closed. But here's where it gets interesting. Before that statement dropped, before anyone knew the actual facts, the media narrative was already spinning. First Take was already preparing their segment. The usual suspects were already lining up to blast Caitlin Clark and the Fever fan base. And this is the part that should concern everyone who cares about honest sports coverage.
Arena security spoke with the fan involved and witnesses. Security determined there was no violation of the fan code of conduct. The fan was not removed from the arena, but elected to leave. We consider the matter closed. Yo, so you, that man, them folks don't paid all that money, sat down on the court side, gave some banter, apparently. Y'all made this man get up, embarrassed him in front of...
Now let's talk about what didn't get coverage. Remember when Seattle had that incident with their co-owner? A grown man, part of the team's ownership group, getting into it with teenagers, yelling at them, cursing at them. We're talking about an actual owner of a WNBA franchise losing his composure with teenage fans. That's not speculation, that's documented fact. Where was First Take then? Where was the national outrage? Where were the think pieces about fan behavior and organizational responsibility? Because if we're gonna have a conversation about fan conduct in the WNBA, let's have it across the board. Let's apply the same standards to every fan base, every incident, every team. But that's not what's happening here. What's happening is selective outrage, strategic narrative building, and it's always aimed in the same direction. The pattern is so predictable at this point that fans called it before it even happened. Watch, something happened with a Fever fan. Here comes the media pile on, and like clockwork, there it was.
Now, they did ask Chelsea Gray how she felt about the situation. Let me go ahead and play this for y'all.
Yeah, I don't know the specifics, but like stuff gets said on the sideline quite often. It wasn't directed at me, it was directed at Jackie. And she told somebody, and clearly they found reason to kick him out. Just leave it there. I mean, if they didn't find any, I mean, they had a reason to kick him out, so they don't just do that for nothing.
They actually found that it wasn't that the fan opted to remain out.
Remained out.
Chelsea Gray's response here is actually pretty telling if you listen carefully. She admits the comment wasn't directed at her, she wasn't involved in the situation, and she says stuff gets said on the sideline quite often. That last part is crucial, quite often. This isn't some unprecedented breach of fan etiquette. This is standard sports banter that happens at every single game in every single arena across every single sport. But then she adds that they must have had a reason to remove the fan. Except here's the problem with that logic. The fan wasn't removed. The official statement from Fever PR explicitly says, security determined there was no violation and the fan elected to leave. So either Chelsea didn't have all the facts when she made that comment, or the situation got misrepresented to the players. Either way, the narrative that got pushed didn't match reality. And
so Jackie Young ended up saying, he was just chirping all game and I let him have it. Then he just made one that was a little bit too far. Then Tony East here said she didn't elaborate on what she felt crossed the line, was glad about the in-arena response. I mean, I need the meat and potatoes here. I mean, what happened? What did he say? Right? Abbreviate it, paraphrase it, give us something, man. I mean, it's hard to say something was really said if this is all you're gonna give us, and then the Fever PR coming behind you and saying, hey, they didn't say anything. Come on, man. Come on, man. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? We're getting fans removed for sports banter? Come on.
Jackie Young says the fan was chirping all game and made one comment that went too far, but she doesn't elaborate on what crossed the line. She doesn't specify what was actually said, and that's her right. She doesn't have to share those details. But here's the issue: without those specifics and with an official statement saying no code of conduct was violated, what are we actually talking about here? Sports banter exists. It's part of the live game experience. Fans pay premium prices for courtside seats specifically because they want to be close to the action, close to the players. And yes, that sometimes includes back and forth exchanges. Every NBA player who's ever sat down for an interview about courtside fans has stories. Some funny, some annoying, but it's understood as part of the territory. The question becomes, where's the line? And more importantly, is that line being applied consistently? Because from what we're seeing, it appears there's one standard for Fever fans and a completely different standard for everyone else. When you can point to documented incidents involving other teams that received zero national media attention, while this situation that resulted in no violation is getting dissected on First Take, that's not journalism, that's agenda-driven commentary.
To talk about with Caitlin Clark on the court, of course, but it seems lately that the conversation around the Fever Guard have surrounded off the court social issues in her commentary, or lack thereof. Clark addressed that pregame yesterday. Let's take a listen.
First and foremost, you speak when you feel like you want to speak. I try to just show up and be myself every single day, and I hope, fans can feel like they can connect with me in that way. But at the same time, I'm 24 years old. I'm trying to navigate life. I'm trying to navigate playing at the highest level. And then, sometimes you get asked a lot of questions, and sometimes that's your responsibility. And then sometimes, you want to keep the focus on basketball. So I feel like you just do your best to navigate it. You go with your gut. And I feel like anytime I try to be up at this podium, I try to give you my authentic self the best way I can.
So Stephen A., what's your reaction to Clark's comments there?
Respectfully, I think she needs to do better. She's 24, she's not 14. She's a highly intelligent young lady and very accomplished. I'm not gonna go as far as to call her, I think that.
And here we go. Stephen A. Smith saying Caitlin Clark needs to do better. She's 24, not 14. She's intelligent, accomplished, articulate. She needs to help quell the noise aimed at the WNBA brand. She needs to speak up about narratives that favor her at the expense of her contemporaries. Let's break down everything wrong with this take because there's a lot to unpack here. First, Stephen A. himself admits it's not most fans, it's not all fans, it's a small portion, his exact words. So if it's a minority of the fan base causing issues, why is the entire conversation centered around Caitlin Clark's responsibility to address it? Why isn't the conversation about the actual individuals engaging in problematic behavior? Second, and this is crucial, Caitlin Clark has spoken up. Repeatedly, she's praised WNBA legends, she's highlighted the players who came before her, she's talked about the privilege of playing in this league, she's been gracious in victory and defeat, she's handled more media scrutiny in her first 2 years than most players face in their entire careers. And she's done it while being told she's not doing enough, not saying the right things, not addressing the right issues. But here's what nobody wants to acknowledge. Caitlin Clark is also a member of the WNBTA. She's also a player in this league who faces criticism, harassment, and vitriol. She's had people in WNBA adjacent media call her white bread and a white teenage boy. She's dealt with a stalker. She's been the subject of countless think pieces questioning her worthiness, her impact, her right to the attention she receives. And how many of her fellow players have spoken up for her during those moments? How many have said, hey, that's too far, leave her alone? The expectation that she needs to constantly defend other players while those same players remain silent when she's attacked is absurd. It's a double standard that exists for exactly one player in this league, and it needs to be called out for what it is.
Let's call it what it is. They're under assault. You've got a lot of people and it's not most, and it's not all, but you have a lot of people, and Commissioner Adam Silver, the NBA, said it best, it's like political theater or whatever. It's been politicized when it comes to Caitlin Clark. If you're Caitlin Clark, there are contemporaries in the league taking hits because of the narratives and the perceptions that are being put out there that drastically favor you. You gotta help quell that noise. I'm not saying that means you deserve to have a fist on your neck when you're on the ground. I'm not saying that means you deserve to be beat up or anything like that. If the physicality is excessive and other people in the WNBA are not going through that, but you are, it needs to be spoken up for on your behalf. But if you know that that's not the case, you got to speak up about that. That's your lane. You would know. You would know whether what's happening to you is excessive compared to others. You would have an idea of the intent of your contemporaries that you're competing against every day compared to the narratives that are being put out there. You are smart enough, you are articulate enough, you are certainly accomplished enough, and you clearly have the cachet to assist in.
Stephen A. continues with this idea that the WNBA is under assault, that it's been politicized, that Caitlin Clark needs to help address the narratives that favor her at the expense of black players who did this before she arrived. And look, there's a conversation to be had about media coverage, about who gets attention and why, about the historical lack of recognition for WNBA pioneers. That's a legitimate discussion, but framing it as Caitlin Clark's responsibility to fix is fundamentally wrong. She didn't create the media landscape. She didn't decide which stories get covered or which players get featured. She showed up, played basketball at an elite level, broke records, filled arenas, and brought unprecedented attention to women's basketball. Those are facts, not narratives. The idea that she needs to constantly genuflect, constantly remind everyone about players from the past, constantly address every perceived slight against her contemporaries, it's exhausting just to describe. And it's a standard that doesn't exist in any other sport for any other athlete. When LeBron James entered the NBA, nobody demanded he spend every press conference praising Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson. When Patrick Mahomes became the face of the NFL, nobody required him to constantly acknowledge Tom Brady and Joe Montana. They were allowed to be great, to accept their success, to focus on their game. But Caitlin Clark, she has to be a spokesperson, a historian, a mediator, a defender of the league, and oh yeah, also play basketball at the highest level. And when she says, I'm 24, I'm trying to navigate life and play at the highest level, she gets told she needs to do better. The goalposts keep moving, the expectations keep growing, and nothing she says or does is ever quite enough.
And if you've got somebody that's bringing that kind of cachet, ride that wave. And there were some that felt that were resentful about it. But let's be very, very clear. They weren't resentful towards Caitlin. They were resentful over the fact that even in the year 2025, 2026 in America, you had this brilliant, young, white, talented basketball player as a female that was getting a level of shine for doing something people who came before her that don't look like her, don't say her pigmentation, her hue, her ethnicity, they were doing this before she ever got here. And they weren't getting that shine. And there's some resentment that may have come from that. But it doesn't mean they don't respect her. It doesn't mean that they go on the court just trying to do harm to her. A matter of fact, a lot of them respect her. A lot of them appreciate her. And a lot of them just want her to be one of the ladies out there showcasing her basketball skills and what have you. Caitlin Clark needs to be reminding the world about that. They shouldn't have to do it. Janae and Monica McNutt and Andrea Carter and others shouldn't have to do that. When Elle Duncan was here, she was doing it. Before she supported, she was doing that with her marvelous self. There's plenty of ladies that are out here that have been raving about her, but also uplifting the WNBA brand. Minnesota Lynx coach Reeve should have been ashamed of herself.
Fam, first off, nobody in the past history of the WNBA has been doing what Caitlin is doing. Are you kidding me? What are you talking? That's why she's breaking so many records, man. Like, what is Stephen A. talking about right now, dog? And it just sounds like you want her to.
Here's what makes this entire situation so frustrating. Stephen A. mentions Chiny Aguamike, Monica McNutt, Elle Duncan, other women in sports media who have been supportive of both Caitlin Clark and the broader WNBA. and he's right. Those women have done excellent work covering the league with nuance and fairness. But then he says they shouldn't have to be the ones defending the WNBA against toxic narratives. Okay, but why is that Caitlin Clark's job? She's a player. She's in her 3rd year. She's still on her rookie contract. She's trying to win games, improve her craft, and help her team compete for championships. The idea that she should also be serving as the league's PR representative, constantly monitoring and addressing fan behavior she has no control over, is ridiculous. And let's be clear about something else. Caitlin Clark didn't ask for any of this. She didn't request to be the face of the league. She didn't campaign for special treatment or demand preferential coverage. She just played basketball, and the audience responded. Ratings went up. Attendance increased, merchandise sales exploded, the entire economic landscape of the WNBA shifted. Those are market forces, not manufactured narratives. But somehow, the success that benefits the entire league has been twisted into something she needs to apologize for or mitigate. The attention that's bringing new fans, new revenue, new opportunities for every player in the WNBA is being framed as a problem she created. And that's not just unfair, it's counterproductive to the league's growth. Think about what's being asked here. Caitlin Clark is supposed to tell her fans, the people who buy tickets to watch her play, who purchase her jersey, who tune into her games, that they're problematic. She's supposed to alienate the very audience that's driving the league's unprecedented growth because a small minority of those fans engage in bad behavior online. That's not a reasonable request. That's not something any athlete in any sport would be expected to do. And here's the thing that really gets lost in all of this. Caitlin Clark has addressed these issues multiple times. She's talked about respecting her opponents. She's praised the physicality and competitiveness of the WNBA. She's acknowledged the players who paved the way. She's been nothing but gracious about her place in the league's history and present, but because she won't engage in the specific performative statements that certain media members want, she's told she's not doing enough. The reality is that no statement she makes will satisfy the critics, because this isn't actually about what she says or doesn't say. It's about discomfort with her success, with the attention she receives, with the way her presence has shifted the conversation around women's basketball. And rather than celebrating that shift, rather than recognizing that a rising tide lifts all boats, there's this constant need to frame her success as coming at someone else's expense. But the numbers don't support that narrative. WNBA viewership is up across the board, not just for Fever games. Attendance is increasing league-wide. Sponsorship deals are growing for multiple teams and players. The entire ecosystem is benefiting from the increased attention. Yes, Caitlin Clark gets a disproportionate amount of that attention, but that's how star power works in every sport. It always has been. Michael Jordan didn't diminish the NBA, he elevated it, and every player in the league benefited from the increased revenue, better contracts, and global exposure. Tiger Woods didn't hurt professional golf. He transformed it, bringing millions of new fans and billions in new money. Serena Williams didn't damage women's tennis. She became its greatest ambassador and helped create opportunities for the next generation. That's what transcendent athletes do. They expand the audience. They change the conversation. They bring people to the sport who might never have paid attention otherwise. And yes, they get the lion's share of attention in the process. That's not a bug, it's a feature. That's how sports marketing works, how media coverage works, how fan engagement works. So when Stephen A. Smith says Caitlin Clark needs to do better, what he's really saying is she needs to make herself smaller. She needs to diminish her own accomplishments to make others feel better. She needs to take responsibility for things completely outside her control. And that's not fair, it's not reasonable, and it's not something that would be demanded of any male athlete in a comparable position. The double standard is obvious, the selective outrage is transparent, and the constant moving of goalposts is exhausting to watch. Caitlin Clark has handled this situation with more grace and maturity than most veterans would manage. She stayed focused on basketball while navigating an unprecedented level of scrutiny. She's been a good teammate, a respectful competitor, and a positive representative for the league. But it's never enough. There's always another statement she should have made, another issue she should have addressed, another group she should have defended. And meanwhile, the actual documented incidents involving other teams and other fan bases get ignored. The actual problematic behavior from people within the WNBA ecosystem gets a pass. But a Fever fan engaging in standard sports banter that security determined wasn't a violation. That becomes a national story and another opportunity to criticize Caitlin Clark. This has to stop. Not for Caitlin Clark's sake, she's proven she can handle it, but for the league's sake, because this constant manufactured controversy, this selective application of standards, this demand that one player solve problems she didn't create, it's not helping the WNBA grow. It's creating division where there should be celebration. It's generating negative headlines when the story should be about unprecedented success. The WNBA is experiencing the best moment in its history. Ratings are up, revenue is growing, new fans are discovering the sport. Young girls are seeing professional women's basketball as a viable career path. That's the story. That's what deserves attention and analysis and celebration, not another manufactured controversy about a fan interaction that resulted in no violation of any code of conduct. So here's the bottom line. Apply consistent standards across all teams and all fan bases. Cover documented incidents with the same energy regardless of which team is involved. Let Caitlin Clark be a basketball player instead of demanding she serve as the league's spokesperson, historian, and behavior monitor. And maybe, just maybe, focus on the actual games instead of creating drama where none exists. Because at the end of the day, that fan paid good money for a courtside seat, engaged in what appears to have been standard sports banter, was investigated by security, cleared of any violation, but chose to leave anyway after being embarrassed. And somehow that became a story about Caitlin Clark not doing enough to control her fan base. That's not journalism. That's not fair analysis. That's agenda-driven commentary designed to generate clicks and controversy. The WNBA deserves better. The players deserve better. The fans deserve better. And yes, Caitlin Clark deserves better. She's done everything asked of her and more. It's time to let her just play basketball and stop demanding she fix problems that aren't hers to solve. The league is growing, the future is bright, and the constant manufactured drama is the only thing holding back what should be an unqualified celebration of women's basketball finally getting the attention it deserves.